That's why I was surprised. I said Chris.
And we are on. Good evening and welcome to the July 13th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting. I'd like to start the meeting by welcoming Roseanne Quox as our new planning board representative.
Thank you.
Roseanne has served as a member of the Conservation Commission previously and has also served as the planning board representative on the Conservation Commission. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Excused from the meeting this evening is Andrea Sellers, Mary Ann Hannigan, and Ann LaFortune. And given that we have some excused members, I'd like to appoint Julia Sinclair as a voting member for our meeting this evening. Having done all of that, we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue, could you do the roll call for us, please? Thank you.
Keith Faber.
Present.
Patrick Reynolds.
Present.
Julia Sinclair.
Present.
Roseanne Quox.
Present.
Casey Schiff.
Present.
Jeff Goldnoff.
Present.
Next agenda item is public comments, but we don't have any public with us this evening, so there will be none there. Next item is the approval of minutes, and the agenda listed only one set of minutes, but there was a site visit, which we had enough people to have a quorum at, so there will actually be two sets of minutes. But I'd like to start with the June 8th, 2017 meeting minutes. I know that Sue sent those out. Anyone have any comments, corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the June 8th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting minutes as drafted.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Patrick. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. So next up is the June 19th, which was a site visit at the Shanda Park, but there were enough folks there that it was a quorum, and Jeff, you had gotten in contact with Wendy ahead of time to post it as a meeting. So it was posted as a public meeting. And I believe you sent out those meeting minutes.
I did.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone have any comments, corrections for the June 19th site visit meeting minutes?
I would just say that I had sent an email out on June 27th to the group, and well, this is quite comprehensive. There were other things that we had discussed that I had sent an email out on that I believe we could either add to the minutes, that it was, or we can just discuss it later on and include it in this evening's minutes.
Okay.
I would be happy to file. I read the email they sent out. Thank you very much. And I would be happy to submit them as a attachment to the minutes.
Okay. Super, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Great, yeah, let's do that. So then I will make a motion to amend the minutes that Jeff Goldnoff wrote for the June 19th site visit by adding or appending the notes that Roseanne Quox wrote related to the site visit as well.
Very good.
I'll second.
And I'll give a copy
I
of this.
have.
You have one? Okay.
I
Yeah. Excellent,
seconded.
Seconded by Jeff.
thank you. Any further discussion?
Can I just get a copy of the email? Did you forward that?
Were you there at the meeting?
Yes.
You were, so you should have gotten one because I CC'd everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get an email. Yeah. Yeah. That'd be fine.
Well, I'm going to send out the.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm going to send out the minutes tonight when I get home.
Okay.
Get
Okay. Perfect. That works.
all those in favor of the motion for the amended minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
5-0.
Abstention? I'm actually going to abstain because I was not there. Next item is the treasurer's report. We got 4 copies of the treasurer's report, and they're distributed around a little bit. As usual, it's a greater tome than I would like to see, but it is what it is. In my initial glance through it, the thing that I thought was most significant that I noticed was on page 2 of the general ledger by account. There is a $20,000 debit on June 13th that's related to current use for U2 297, and it looks like there's additional numbers there, but they get cut off.
Page 2.
Page 2 of the general ledger. So you have to, it's actually like
Oh.
page 4 overall.
Oh,
So the
okay.
first section is
Okay.
current expenditures. Then there's a financial summary.
Here we
I
go.
don't think we got one last month either, right?
Oh, there it is.
So I think that might be the first time we see the 531 one as well.
That could be.
'Cause I think last month we didn't have,
Oh, I think you're right. Yep.
Recorded current use.
'cause I was like, wow, 265 is more than 20,000 more than I remember it being.
Yes, yep.
30.
So what does that transaction represent?
So that's some property came out of current use. And if a property has been in current use, it's taxed at a lower rate. And then if it's taken out of current use and developed, they basically pay back taxes on that property. And when that money is received by the town puts 50% of it into the Conservation Commission fund, and the other 50% goes into the town general fund as revenue.
I see. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody know about where that might be?
I was just wondering that myself.
I think the R lots are over by the, over at the golf course, but the U2.
But that land was not in, I don't think that was in current use when that was
Some
approved.
portions.
Some portions of it were.
Yeah, so we've been
some
receiving
was.
bits as they
Could be,
put up
yeah.
more houses. Is that Boulder Heights?
Yeah.
Is Boulder Heights U2?
See, I thought.
I think it is.
No, that's in the M zone. That's M1 or M2
See,
golf course.
I think our house is in U2, which is over here. So I'm not sure
Does
what
it
this
say
would
what
be.
zone it was in?
See, I thought my house on Dame Road was in U2.
Yeah, so, I mean, it could be Boulder Heights.
Oh, it
I
could be.
thought U2 was.
Does it give a zone on any of the papers?
And no, it just says U2-297, then a 3.
Where
then
does it say
something else.
U2?
Oh, right there.
Clicked off.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm looking.
U2.
I don't have any more.
Unless it's part of the piece, because the golf course itself is in the M zone, unless it's a piece that went down to the side along Ash Swamp.
But that's, I think it's our
That's
our tax map though,
U2, I gotta look that up now.
because, I'm in a R5 on National.
When does it change? When someone moves into a house, or when a house is built, or when a permit to build the house is granted?
When the use is physically changed, then
When does the zone change?
it's
Well, when
the current
does
use
this
status.
disbursement happen? Is it after the house is approved, or
Built.
is it when it's built, or when is it
Built.
taken, when someone actually takes occupancy?
When the use is physically changed. So if I get a permit to build a driveway, I may never build it, so they can't take it out of current use until I physically build the driveway.
So when the
But
house
I
is
mean,
constructed.
But truly, it only really happens when it gets assessed. That's
Right.
my understanding, because
No,
I spoke to the
you-
folks at.
You can have a plan.
Right.
If you have, the way I understand, if you have land in current use and you get an approval, a site plan approval for 10 houses, when that's approved, those lots are now assessed at current property values. They're not assessed at the lower current use rate. They're now assessed at regular property value. So if it's a house without a lot, you'll pay a tax on a house without a lot if you don't build within that first year. Once you build, then you pay the full cost. But as soon as you get approved, you go in the tax rolls for that tax year, and you pay for whatever's on that specific house lot. If it's empty, you just pay the land value of an approved house lot. If a house is built, you pay the whole kit and caboodle.
But when do you pay the penalty, though? That's the question.
I don't know that
Okay.
there is a penalty. I thought it was just
Yeah,
once
no,
you...
there is.
There is a penalty,
Yeah,
okay.
I think the penalty gets assessed when you actually physically change the land.
So that would be upon site plan approval,
Be-
yeah.
Because it would, well, no, because you can build a driveway through current use land on your own lot, or build a garage on current
Yeah.
use land in your lot. So you can get a permit to build a garage, but the land doesn't actually come out of current use until you start to build the garage. That's my understanding of that.
So once
So you get,
construction
then you get
begins.
assessed for more, the full value, and you pay a penalty of, I forget how the calculation works out.
Yeah.
They figure the penalty,
Hmm.
but like for the golf course, as they build more houses, then we start to get the larger checks from that.
Because there's those houses being built on Ash Swamp and Grant right there too,
Oh, yeah,
that have gone up this summer, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, they just started.
That probably, I don't know if that property was big enough to be in current use.
The Dearborn lot is R6.
Oh, so it has to be a certain size.
Has to be at least 10 acres.
Has to be at least 10 acres, got it. So yes, those would qualify, I got it, okay. All right, well, I didn't mean to drag us down a long, just
Well,
trying to
no, yes,
understand
yeah,
it
no,
better.
yeah, absolutely, it's a good conversation to have, because it is, it's an income source for both the town and the Conservation Commission, and it's important that we understand the basics of it. So does anyone else have anything else that they see or have interest in the treasurer's report of note?
Is that our total there, the 24,000? That's totals for
The
June?
total for the Conservation Commission account? No, the total is,
Oh,
Page
57?
one, year-to-date, financial summary year-to-date.
Mhm.
Do you have that page? $265,864.37. It's just a one-pager.
which is the third page of the original.
It's a one-pager.
Yeah, it's this guy,
Oh, right
there.
here?
No,
Okay.
right there.
Oh, okay. There was this one here.
I think the $1,500 that shows up a bunch of times must just be the fish,
For the fishing derby.
the fishing derby. It shows up numerous times, I think, back and forth.
On a yearly basis, or?
What page is that, Jeff? Sorry.
It's on page 3
Of? Does it say at
of
the
the
top?
general ledger account, sorry.
1,500?
Yeah, because it keeps, yeah,
And
it's
then on the-
listed as the,
Right, and then it minuses itself out, and then it shows up at the ending balance as just 15 in both, which it should to balance out to 0. I think maybe they just accidentally entered it numerous times.
But the RCID is Rockingham County Registry of Deeds.
No,
so-
I know.
So that-
Maybe. I don't know what the RCRD conservation donation means, because we gave a conservation, I don't know.
That is something you should probably ask Carol upstairs, or Lisa,
yeah.
what that represents.
I think it's a little interesting.
Yeah.
It shows up again in general supplies.
Yeah, on page 5.
Yeah.
Totals for period, expenses.
All right, well, I'll shoot an email to the finance office to ask about those. Okay, anything else on the treasurer's report? Hearing none, we'll move on to committee and subcommittee reports. Town council? Casey,
Um,
anything from the town council?
Just a little bit. We last met on June 21st. We're meeting on July 19th, so next week. Our last meeting, we discussed paving through town with some of the resolutions. We discussed signage restrictions and regulations. And we also talked about updating the sewer plan, which is actually quite comprehensive in terms of trying to, I believe it was from the 70s the last time it was updated. So it's much more detailed, much more comprehensive, and taking into account a lot of environmental concerns as well, to kind of get it up to date. The other thing that came up was looking at the dam, to get some surveying of that, but that was about it at our last meeting. So
So what about I knew you guys were going to talk about the dam. What exactly was discussed there?
we had the first reading of a resolution to authorize Geo-Environmental to kind of do a stability analysis and design, to kind of just see in terms of what might need to be shored up or whatnot. So very preliminary, though, in terms of just getting an initial survey to see, I guess, how much integrity there still is in the structure. So, but yeah, pretty early on with that.
With the idea of rebuilding it?
Or even just or
Or
stabilizing
rehabbing it,
Yeah.
stabilizing it?
Yeah.
And related to the sewer plan update, what sort of time frame is the expectation that plan would be updated over?
They have the entire draft version out. It's
Okay.
it's actually pretty detailed. It's, I want to say, let's see. Yeah, it went from a relatively short document that hasn't been touched since the 70s, and this current version of it is 60 pages long, with a whole bunch of addendums and stuff. So it's
Sure,
much
sure.
more detailed. So yeah.
And what sort of time frame is that expected to be valid for? Is that like I know we try to update our master plan every 10 years.
Yeah.
Is this sort of similar time frame?
I think it's be more because, like you said, the last time we touched it was back in the 70s. So I think the goal here is there's a lot of stuff that's been added to it to kind of match up with different regulations across the state and stuff. So I think about every 10 years or so, go back in and if you need to add or adjust. But this is pretty comprehensive in terms of what's been put out.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Patrick, is it? Oh, no.
I'm
Casey.
Patrick.
Casey, yeah.
Casey. Was that Kyle Pimental who presented to the town council? He's the principal planner at the Stratford Regional.
I don't believe so. We had, the first session in June. Yeah, I can't remember who was at this particular meeting, but we kind of just went through the updated document with any concerns or any additions too. But I actually don't have the names available right here.
Okay, because he was before planning board Tuesday night, and just going over, like I said, he's the principal planner, and he had an update on the projects with the MS4 requirements, and we need a model for our stormwater. We have to update our stormwater ordinances, which Diane Hardy, the town planner, is wondering if anyone on here has the inclination, interest, or expertise to assist her with helping us with the stormwater ordinances. That would be helpful, to have someone from conservation on there. And I guess it was the Cornell Atlas that they've been using for about 10 years now for engineers, just increasing the size of the holding detention ponds for when they engineer sites, and I guess it's the 2017 draft model that's on the website now. So he had discussed that. That just came out a little while ago. So it was very interesting. But it's for the Setting Sail is the name of the project, and it's stormwater regulation update. And that happens to be the planning board report.
I was going to say, is there anything else for the planning board? That sounded like it. Do you know where I've heard the setting sail term. Do you know where that comes from? What was that?
Last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice.
Well, That's the
Yeah,
name.
that was Amanda
But
Stone.
That was Amanda Stone. who
Amanda
came
Stone.
to talk about, and I attached the New Hampshire setting sail addendums, what conservation commissions can do
Right.
with changing climate. And she talked about a presentation that was going to happen already. So same setting sail,
Yeah.
same communities involved, and it's attached to the last meeting.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what makes it setting sail, I guess. You know what I mean? You know, that's sort of the.
I'm glad you asked.
Because it doesn't really make sense to me.
The SAIL part is an acronym. It stands for Coastal Risk and Hazard Conditions Science, Assessment, Implementation, and Legislation Recommendation.
Okay.
Boy, is she
Should have
good.
read a little more.
She's on the ball.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
She
yeah.
was absolutely on the ball. Thank you.
Remember? She's going to do the buffer. Meetings when you ask.
That's right, when I ask. I'm gonna put that down on the list of things.
Okay. Are there any other subcommittees that have anything to report?
Should I report on Shotmeyer Park progress now, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so on June 20th, we had a Shotmeyer Park meeting and kind of discussed, so now that this is our first meeting after the closing the property. So the survey was finalized, the survey was recorded, and they promptly began to, the deeds were signed, they promptly built a driveway and a parking area.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly, and did a great job, I believe. I've seen it, I haven't been up on it and walked on it. The stone posts that we discussed being placed have been ordered. I'm not sure the date that those are going to be put in. There is a date set to have those placed. I thought it was July 19th or something like that, to have that started, and a simple kidney bench has been ordered along with that. Talked about a kiosk, ongoing discussions about putting together the kiosk. One other thing I took on that is the sign that will go by the road to show that the park is there back off the road. So talked to the commission about that. I figured that we would probably want something similar to perhaps what we just had put in at Heron Point. Kind of similar design, same company, it looked the same pretty much, is kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking it would probably say Shotmeyer Memorial Park and have an arrow and be readable from both directions. So what it is, there's going to be an 8-inch, I believe it's an 8-inch by 8-inch granite post with a hanger coming off of it out by the road there. And so what I've done is I contacted the same people. They're closed until next Monday. They were closed the last week and a half or 2 weeks. So on Monday, I'm going to give them a call again and kind of see for sizing because it's kind of a long name to fit on a hanging, So I think we're going to have a metal bracket fashioned to attach to the post. So kind of that will all piece together. So kind of that's where, if everyone's kind of in agreement that that's the way it should kind of look, then inquire if there's any design requests. So basically the town seal at the top, Shotmeyer Memorial Park. Unless someone wants to say Conservation Park, or I'm not sure how folks feel about that. But we didn't get too into it. I said I'd get the Conservation Commission's input so that we kind of
Sure.
be ours, but
I mean, my initial reaction is shorter's better,
yeah.
just because it's easier to read.
Mhm.
Shotmeyer
For
Conservation.
any given size, the fewer letters we have, the bigger the font we can use.
Sure enough. Yeah, because that's the thing. If it's like, 2 foot probably isn't too bad. 2 feet wide, by however tall.
So it'll look pretty much similar to the other signs that going up around town.
Pretty similar, I believe. They're a little different. You mean the historical ones they've been putting up? Historical
Well-
downtown?
Mike, our compliance officer, right? What's Mike's last name?
Hoffman.
Hoffman. He's been involved in putting those signs up, he was saying, right?
So this, well,
Yep.
this sign, the Heron Point one that he got for
Yeah.
us, yeah, it'll be the same company. So I'm just gonna call up and say we want a sign just like the one you guys just made at Heron Point. But
Okay.
put the
Except
text on it.
different text, yeah.
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 And readable from both sides, just like the one for Heron Point.
Okay.
And then, that we can attach 2 chains to or something like that.
And they're
So
made out of wood, right?
They are, I can't remember if they're made out of wood.
Okay.
If they're not made out of wood, they're 100% painted
Yeah.
or colored, so it's not like there would be a plastic visible
Right.
type difference. So I can recirculate the photos. That's kind of what I circulated to the Shopmeyer Park Committee, was the photos that Mike gave to us of the sign and said, here's kind of the idea of what it would look like.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Send those back around.
I had a question for Jim.
Yep, go ahead.
Did you, Mike would be a great help, because it was him and Steve that put, all those nice blue signs around town, welcome to Newmarket. Yeah, those are really nice. Is that similar to what they did up at Heron
It's
Point
very
with that
similar.
blue?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same color blue. I think it might be a little later, but.
Yeah, and it's along 108, so you'd have to check with the state to see what the setback is off the road to place a sign. Mike should have all that. And then you also have to take into consideration the speed on the road which the sign is going on, because the faster the cars go, the larger the sign should be, because if
Yeah.
not, you wouldn't be able to read it. And
Yeah.
they kind of slow down there. I
It's a
think
30
only
mile an
30.
hour.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
30
and it's-
mile an hour. They should slow down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the spot across the street is a very.
That's
Yeah, it's
very-
very
Nice.
It's a
Yeah.
very good spot to relax.
Yeah.
It's 30, but it seems like there's a lot of like clutter in that area between buildings and stuff like that. So I would say, yeah, the shorter the better, so you can see it.
Yeah, and it's gonna be on the town side of the driveway, I believe. So, because there's trees and then 2 driveways, there'll be trees and then a driveway and then park driveway. I think we're gonna go with it on the town side of the driveway. So it'll be a little further from the closest tree line, because you come around the bend.
And this price here, the $790, that's the price of.
No,
approximate
that was the,
price?
that's the
That was
approximate price, so we appropriated,
Okay.
$800.
And that's coming out of the funds for the park
It's coming out
itself.
of the Shopmeyer.
You saw it? Great. It's moving along quickly.
It is,
It
yeah.
is, yeah.
And,
Very good.
and, yeah, so the thought now is there'll be 19 granite posts. Let's see. So another thing that's happened is Elizabeth Dudley had volunteered to do some design work for a entrance garden, which she just circulated a couple of days ago. I took a quick look at it. It looks pretty nice. Not sure when our next meeting's gonna be, but so that's where it is. And we did also discuss the docking system, and still trying to sit down with DES and have a discussion as to what process we need to go through moving forward. But there's still, or the committee's still interested in looking at the same docking system that we've been looking at with, still, like I said, without input from DES yet, but still crossing the cove with the perpendicular ramp for getting in and out of the kayaks from. And Dick Lord of the Lamprey River Advisory Committee is still coming through with some ideas on the kiosk design, and he has an individual that he's trying to get help from, and we've appropriated monies for putting together the kiosk and signage for it. Once again, probably going with Kevin Martin on the building of the kiosk like we did on our last 2. I think that's pretty much where we're at. So everybody's putting in a good effort. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, it sounds like it's moving along well.
It is. It's moving along
That's
very
great.
well. I assume our next meeting They typically come about a week after our Conservation Commission meetings, but I haven't heard any chatter yet. But I'm sure we will soon.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. So next up is the chairman's report, and I only have one thing on there, and that is I received an email today from an intern who's working for LCHIP. This intern is planning to come out to the Piscassic River Loisel property on July 19th, which is next Wednesday at 1 o'clock to do a little site monitoring visit. They requested, if anyone from the Conservation Commission was interested in joining them, they would welcome that, which I think would be great, but Wednesday at 1 is not an easy time.
What was that about again? That was,
So LCHIP was one of the funding partners for the Piscassic River Loisel property.
okay.
And they have an intern who's going to come out and do a site monitoring visit. So I will forward that email to everybody on the commission, and I'll reply. I guess what I'll do is I'll reply to the intern saying, they're welcome to come. I'll CC everybody on the commission saying I can't get there. Anyone else who's interested is welcome to join.
Do you remember? I didn't say just publicly that I apologize to that individual. He did call me the other day, and I told him that I was going to. He had sent an email, and I told him that, and then he called, and I told him that I would circulate his email, and I could not find it in my inbox at all. I could not come across it.
Andy Healy.
Yes, exactly.
Andrew Healy.
So I looked for it. I couldn't find his email, so I didn't circulate it. But thank you, Andy. I told him that you were the current chairman, so he probably looked you up.
Fair
on the
enough.
website.
Yeah.
And I said I would CC you and send it out. And apologize, Andy. That's next Wednesday he's looking to.
Yeah. Wednesday the 19th.
I told him there was the slightest chance that if I was somehow peculiarly bored, which I don't anticipate,
Yeah.
might show up.
That won't happen for me.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Does the Loisel property go all the way down to Pollard's Brook?
From the Audubon property, there's corners that touch.
Right, okay.
So yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's literally two corners touch.
Yeah,
They're
way
really-
up high on the ridge, I
It's actually
think-
down a little bit lower, but
Was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from that, it's all the way up over, because it goes up to the top of the ledge.
Yeah, my
Oh,
piece,
that's
it's
true.
up
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
It's
Starts
up
at the
top,
bottom.
and then it's down.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts at the bottom and
Yeah.
goes up. Yeah.
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 But yeah, that property, the property itself doesn't reach the Falls Brook.
But in
Right.
conjunction with getting onto our old piece of Kent.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a trail.
Yeah, that's what the Bergeron boy had put in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The loop, yeah, yeah.
Related to that, just FYI, Ellen's going to attempt to have a draft of the map of that area for the
Okay.
next meeting.
Great.
I should have said that under the other bullet, but
Oh,
missed
that's
it.
fine.
And I had one other thing under the Shopmeyer
Sure.
that will hopefully, will be that soon enough. We'll have to think about that. That'll be through the Conservation Commission, not the Shopmeyer Park.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we will have access to the funds at that time.
Okay. Okay.
The park gets actually together and completed and turned over to the Conservation Commission at that point, I believe, is when they're supposed to formulate conservation.
Plan.
Yeah, because it'll be built out into the state, the visionary state. And we work with that. I didn't know, I didn't.
Okay, great.
So,
Yeah, no problem. So next up is old and new business. So we had three things in there. One is the Recreation Department reached out to Jeff and I as it relates to the usage of Shanda Park. And so their question was, should they submit individual usage requests for each evening that they're hoping to use the Shanda Park for the arts in the park concert dates, or just send us the dates and we can discuss. And so we said, why don't you just send us the dates? We'll discuss and respond accordingly. So related to that, so the Recreation Department sponsors these arts in the park dates. The dates moving forward are July 18th, July 25th, August 1st, August 8th, August 15th, August 22nd, and August 29th. And they are essentially requesting to use the park from 5 p.m. until 9 o'clock, or dark, essentially. As far as I know, we have no other outstanding requests for park usage on any of those dates. If anyone knows of any, please speak up. Hearing none?
Are these all open and free to the public?
Yes. Yep.
Did you give the date for the kayak thing as well?
Yeah, so I'm gonna
Oh,
treat
sorry.
that one as a separate one because it's a separate entity.
Okay.
So, hearing none, I would propose that the Conservation Commission agree that the Recreation Department is welcome to use Shanda Park for their Arts in the Park concerts, which are open to the public on all of those dates as listed.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make that a motion.
Second the motion?
Any further discussion on those?
I know it's the rec department that's handling that. Do the people who are putting the show on, do they have to get anything signed by the town for liability under their insurance?
I don't know.
I'm sure Amy would know that,
That's a
would
good
handle
question.
that.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
my
just to make,
guess.
just to make sure that's done. And especially with Shanda Park, with what we saw there, with some of the concerns with snow fencing up in certain areas, that should definitely be, they have one tomorrow, the 18th, there should
Yeah,
be
so
that
this week.
snow fences up prior to the concert starting.
Yeah, well, I think we need to discuss that with the whole overall maintenance. I mean, but yeah, there's some concerns that are.
Some safety issues there.
Okay, so let's address those in the next bullet, which is Shanda
Okay.
Park maintenance.
Okay.
Let's concentrate on the usage at this point. So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any additional conversation related to the usage by the Recreation Department for the arts park concerts? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
5-0.
And then the secondary request is, last year they started a splash and dash kayak race and paddle palooza on the Lamprey River, and they would like to do that again this year. And the request is for setup on Friday, August 18th, and then it's an all-day event on Saturday, August 19th. And it's an event that's open to the public and is using the park and the boat launch area for water-based recreation and encouraging people to, get in and use the river.
I'll second a motion. Is that a motion?
So I'll provide that information, and then I'll say, I will make a motion that the Conservation Commission supports the Recreation Department usage of Shanda Park on Friday, August 18th, and Saturday, August 19th.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Julia. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 500. Excellent. Thank you, one and all. I think that takes care of that one. But it brings up the Shanda Park maintenance as the next one. So I would like to turn this aspect over to the folks that went on the site visit there and take it from there.
Well, I think there's really two issues. Or do you want to review the minutes?
I'm not going to review the minutes. I just want to say that just really quick overview of what happened there, kind of how it went.
Okay.
So on June 19th, 2017 at 6 p.m., we had a site walk at Shanda Park. There are several members of the Conservation Commission there, as well as the Planning Board rep and the Town Council rep. Phil McDonald from Underwood Engineers was there at our request to kind of review the structural integrity of the retaining walls and kind of the status of the riprap slopes, and we ended up looking at the status of kind of both banks of Moonlight Brook and the boat launch. Mike Hoffman, the town code enforcement officer, was also there. He kind of initiated the whole, we better take a look at Shanda Park thing. So this is our second site visit. And basically, I'm not going to read the entire set of minutes, as they will be part of the public record, but basically the consensus was that the majority of the retaining walls need rehabilitation. Some parts are currently failing and perhaps pose an immediate public safety risk. Some parts of the riprap slope the same, as there are voids underneath where the smaller materials have been washed away. So kind of, and also we also kind of looked at the far side of Moonlight Brook may or may not be public property, but that is being eroded perhaps more rapidly these days than it was in the past, as there's heavier flow through the brook, and the town boat launch there is certainly deteriorated, and some of the feeling is that it's kind of deteriorating into kind of a more flattened state and extending into the river, and therefore making the boat launch, less viable at different tides. Kind of the end-all suggestion was that we kind of put together kind of a rough kind of, we want to fix these retaining walls, we want to fix that riprap slope, kind of come up with a basic linear feet of each, kind of apply, I couldn't remember the exact dollar amounts he said for the different kinds, if it was 10 and 100 per linear foot. I think that's what he said, $10 per linear foot of riprap and $100 per linear foot of retaining wall, approximately. So to kind of get a rough cost, and then once we kind of know how much this is going to cost, we can kind of figure out how to actually do something about it. Kind of perhaps put together a little something for a quick presentation, basically, to powers that be, whether it be town council or town administrator. But, so that was just my quick overview. I'm sure folks want to talk more in detail about it. And that, as Patrick, I believe, was about to talk about the perhaps fencing off immediately of some problem areas.
Well, Mike brought up that someone did slip and fall there. It was a young kid who fell. I think that whole, so there's the area that juts out. So on one side of it is the boat ramp, and on the other side is where Moonlight Brook enters into the river and the culverts. I think that whole area ought to be sealed off at this point, because it's too enticing to people to come to the edge there. We saw, as we were just all standing there, we watched repeatedly as people would come up and they would sit on the wall, even though the wall is actually starting to fall into the water. They would, and even Phil said those could
Any minute.
go over at any moment.
There were
So
stones in the creek that were not in the creek at our first sidewalk. Pretty sizable.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
settlement, yeah.
Yeah, they're sliding.
And we just, I just think that that's a risk we shouldn't, especially with all these events coming up. If we put up like Roseanne said, a snow fence, like that orange fencing, and a sign saying, you know, unsafe, closed to the public, that's probably the thing we need to do with the busy season.
A sturdy one too, yeah,
Yeah.
not just,
And tell Amy, you know,
yeah.
advise her.
They might even be able to put some of their interns or helpers along there just to make sure that, you know, when you've got little kids there and whatnot, they just want to do. And then too, especially with the kayak festival coming up too, what is it, Splash?
Splash and dash.
Splash and Dash. That's the weekend my grandkids are coming up. I was gonna rent some kayaks, I better call it tomorrow. But, yeah, just to be safe and to protect the town from that extra liability.
Well, then by where the culvert where Moonlight Brook comes out, you can even see the wall is leaning, the top is leaning in towards it too. So my concern would be the fact that it is kind of in the process of slowly tumbling in. So I think getting that fence up would be good.
So let me play back what I've heard and make sure I've got it right. So the biggest concern area is where Follett's, or where Moonlight Brook comes out of the culverts. And if I'm standing at the kiosk and looking towards the,
Residential side.
the area of the park that protrudes out the most, it's on the right-hand side of that. And it's really the section of wall that's collapsed that is of the greatest concern.
Right in front of the Chicks Weir post.
Yeah,
That explains the,
yeah. Okay.
because there's almost like a
So-
sidewalk leading to it.
Right. So I think my proposal for how to address this would be to ask the Department of Public Works if they could put up some sort of safety fencing along there, and if they have signage that's appropriate to install that as well. Does that seem like a reasonable approach and proposal?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. And also I wouldn't mind getting, you know, Rick's opinion from a public safety standpoint, you know, if he recommends that we do anything else, any areas that he says, you know, that looks, we ought to consider it, because, you know,
Okay.
just, like Jeff said, it changed from, what, was it 2 weeks between your site visits? 2 to 3
It
weeks?
might
It's
have
less
been-
than a month.
It was, yeah, it was in the order of a
Yeah.
month.
So
because
I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't changed again in another 3 weeks.
It may have. That stone was particularly loose during the first
Yep.
walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might actually ask Rick to take a walk down there with Mike Hoffman and discuss it with him, the code enforcement
Mhm.
officer.
And depending on the day, I might be able to meet him down there and kind of show him what we discussed. I mean, if Mike can't make it,
Yeah.
it's really the key would be to just get, I would say, like, probably, if you're looking at the lamplighter, you know, and it bends around towards the culverts, probably one, and make a corner, so you block the end of the wall, and then along the wall, out probably to the
Stone
to the
wall.
stone wall.
That's up,
The
up
elevate, yeah.
higher.
Mhm.
Exactly, out to
Yeah.
that stone wall, would
Yeah.
kind of cordon it off. Hopefully people wouldn't go down the riprap and then climb up on the wall. You never know. You can't stop
Right.
people from doing everything.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think the other thing that came up too, which not related to necessarily safety, but in Moonlight Brook, that kind of edge that's probably going against private property is kind of, it's starting to kind of hollow out underneath the trees. There's like a row of trees. So, I mean, I don't know what could be done short term for that, but the idea that like kind of, you know, the trees are quite nice and it's starting to really kind of eat out underneath those trees.
Yeah, the root system's not very stable because of it.
Mhm.
I mean, part of that is, it's related to the sewer plant and everything
Yeah.
else. It's, you know, things are washing out down there because of rain events and drainage in general. I mean, I don't really know what you could do to address that, you know, that side of that's the person's house is on Moonlight Brook. I know that person's very, you know, very happy about the park being there and likes to use the park a lot too, so. But, yeah, I don't know did he have any suggestions, Phil, when we talked to him about that?
It didn't seem like he did, and if it was, he kind of, if I remember right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like, I remember him saying, like, it's kind of thinking that was probably private property,
Mm-hmm.
especially from the tree line where those planted trees are upstream.
Right.
That's, doesn't mean you can't push stone in there, to help stabilize it. As far as retaining wall, I don't know. I don't think he addressed building a new retaining wall there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most of our discussion talked about trying to fix the safety hazards and the, and the erosion in the riprap slopes and stuff.
It's also hard because the more you channelize things, the higher the velocity,
Yep.
and then the more erosion you get.
Exactly,
as well.
exactly.
So like pushing riprap into the bank, and somehow trying to, I mean, if water's flowing, it's gonna wash stuff away.
Yep.
And it's gonna
Yes.
wash the smaller materials away, no matter what you
Yep.
do, and it doesn't back up from the river as fast as it flows out. So it's not gonna bring much silt back when the tide comes in. but-
Yeah. There is also an area where the dock is. So you cross the Moonlight Brook, go to the left there, and there's the dock where you can
Yep.
carry your kayak down to. There is some erosion also along that bank that's pretty bad too. So part of what I would say is that overall we need to consult somebody about, I think, about here we have this beautiful park that's so well used in the town. It's really our signature park for downtown.
Mhm.
And I think it's at risk right now if we don't look at how we can best design something that's going to last, for a while. I mean, we could shore up some things, but I think we ought to be looking at a longer term plan for it to say, what do we want this park to look like? What can we do? It may take more investment than just fixing the walls. It may be, we have a management plan for it, or, right? Is that correct?
I would doubt it.
So
Possible, but I
that might
don't
be
know.
something that we should look at. I mean, I know that we have some exemptions as far as what we can do along the riverbank. Is that right?
Because it's on the downtown, the urban exempt
Oh, okay.
portion, that doesn't mean we can do whatever we want.
No, but I mean, within,
No, yeah.
otherwise, if it was another section of the river, we wouldn't be able to do anything, I believe.
Well, you'd be able to do, you could still do things, you just need to go through more permitting.
More permitting.
Yeah, it's a different process, but.
Well, okay, so what I'm hearing though is there's an immediate need of contacting the DPW and making sure that we have things done to improve the safety. And then there's shorter and longer term needs as well. Where does Underwood Engineers come in as far as, are they gonna get back to us with information, or was this a sort of one-off meeting that they provided information and rough estimates, and then we have to move forward
speak
from
to
that?
that?
I would say the latter, wouldn't you? That he was just there to consult, but.
He wasn't there to go back and engineer. Yeah, he wasn't there for that purpose at all. He was there to, the reason I asked originally to have an engineer present was to not just have a bunch of laymen out there saying, man, that thing looks like it's falling down, because obviously it looks like it's falling down, but to have someone in there to say it's failing because this is what's happening to it. This might look good to you, but no, it's not good, So that was my whole reason for trying to get, someone from Underwood out there, because they're the town manager, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think Rosanna.
Oh,
True.
yes.
Yeah, in regards to all that, I mean, there were a lot of questions, and I think before we get estimates or anything else, the first thing I had on my list was the safety fence, even before I knew that there were gonna be concerts in the park. That's something that you're gonna take care of. We should ask Fish and Game to a meeting here to discuss the boat ramp, to see why it wasn't done last time. They wanted a certain size, we wanted a certain size. We should ask Fish and Game here. We should ask LRAC to a meeting here to discuss it. Judy Ryan, who's with the condo association next door, they had riprap put for their wall. We should find out from her who did their wall and what it cost a foot for them. What is the designation of that park? How is it designated? Who would have that information? Would the designation give us any extra financial aid because of its designation? If it doesn't have a specific one, can we designate it a certain way before we start this work so we can get some funding for it, some additional funding? Who is financially responsible, according to the town's attorney, on the residential side of where Moonlight Brook comes in? Are the homeowners responsible for that retaining part of the retaining wall? I don't think an overall design of the entire park is needed, but there was that, remember that big indentation that was starting to erode? We kind of thought of maybe filling that in so you could add to the footprint of the park.
The boat launch is where you're talking
The boat launch was there, and
No,
then
the-
right next
by
to
the
it.
kayak.
Yeah, that's a boat. No.
No.
You're talking about the peninsula goes out and then the town docks here and there's a
Yes,
big, yeah, that's
yes.
an old boat ramp.
That's an
there.
old boat ramp, and I guess that's where they take the weir in and out
Yeah.
over there, but we could get additional, because it is eroding over there, so fill in that, to extend the park footprint. And I think any engineering and any talk about costs should be done after we've talked to all these officials and gotten all this information, because you can't do anything like that. And secondly, is there any money left in the treasure from Shanda Park, or was it all spent?
I think it's there, it's like $700.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's all that's left?
I
Yeah.
think it's in this report.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is.
It
in
is
this
in that report.
And
What,
it's
no,
on the
what-
order of.
if Fish
you know,
and
hundreds
Game
of dollars.
arrived here, what value do you see Fish and Game
For the
adding?
boat ramp?
I mean, do you see them wanting to contribute financially?
Yeah, because we came close to it last time, and it wasn't installed because of they disputed the size of the town. We wanted to keep it the original width, and they wanted to change it, I
That's my
think.
understanding.
Yeah, so
They wanted the width of the typical concrete boat ramp, where they
Yeah.
have the concrete curbs or whatever, they sink into the ground, they're like
Yeah.
specific width.
and we wanted to keep it wide. I mean, we could say for historical value of the area, but, just to get these people here to see what type of funding and what we could do to move this forward, because that boat ramp is really in bad shape.
So I agree with everything you said, Roseanne.
Mhm.
Do you have time to start pursuing some of those?
I'd love to.
And are you willing to?
Sure,
Excellent.
sure, yep. I could maybe even.
I would love to have you do that.
Yep,
Just so I can just say one thing about, and like, I second what Drew just said. I would also add that what Phil's suggestion, his first suggestion is taking, we could even do with an aerial photo, but if we have the design for the park, and I didn't have time to look through the files at our office, at Doucette Survey's office, because I know we've done Doucette Survey has done work in that area to kind of get a little footprint picture of what we have and kind of get an idea of what our vision is as a starting point, even before you start talking to people, because you might say, we have a vertical retaining wall here, maybe we don't need one, maybe riprap, but like I kind of noted in some of these minutes that it didn't seem like we have much that we could change from vertical to sloped unless it was adjacent to the boat launch to make it narrower
yeah,
or something
that's
like
true,
that.
yeah.
But if we wanted to raise part and put more riprap or something, just to get a general overall picture, hey, this is what we want to do, this is our vision for this park, if we need to fix it, or do we want to change anything now? So many feet of retaining wall, so many feet of riprap. And then when you bring people in to talk to them, you have something to say, here's kind of what the park looks like, this is what we want to do. And he said it can be just sketch, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. We could probably just
Anybody
print
have a
out-
drone that takes pictures?
Doucette
That'd
Survey
be-
does.
Huh?
I said Doucette
Well,
Survey has a
maybe
drone.
we could ask him to take some pictures for us.
Mike Hoffman, I think, said that he just, at our site walk, I thought he said he had parts of the river flown for some photos for the.
So maybe we could get some pictures of Shanda Park with the drone, that would be fantastic. So we have something, when everybody comes here to talk, have something to show 'em.
And you could print it to a scale, so you
Yeah.
could slap a scale on it and say,
Yeah.
it's 1=40, so we can kind of get some linear dimensions.
Would we have a file or anything on Shanda Park with whatever we have? I think that might be a good starting point. Like Jeff said, there might be the original site design that we could look at, and if there was any kind of plan that was made originally, or anything.
Whatever we have would be in the file cabinet locked up downstairs.
Okay.
I do not have the key with me. I will give you I still have to give Drew the keys for the cabinet.
Would that plan be with town papers as well as with conservation?
Possible.
Okay,
Don't know.
all right.
How much money did you say was left in the
Thought 700.
Yeah,
I think
it's on
it's-
the order of hundreds. Okay, so
$764.31.
what I'm hearing is we still need to do the immediate address the safety needs.
Yes.
And then it sounds like there's a desire to have sort of an overall view of what the park's current condition is. And then use that to propose a future state. And then with that in mind, start reaching out to potential stakeholders to bring it together to get us to that future state. So am I playing that back correctly?
I think you've done a good recap there, Drew.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so
And
how do we?
I'd be happy to reach out. I can check with Mike Hoffman to see if he, Doucette has a drone to take some pictures and to take pictures so that we can put it to scale, like Jeff said.
Or if they already have them, even
If they
better.
already have them, if we have plans, or if they'd be locked up in, with the conservation papers, is there a prior design for the park, and who would have those? I'll ask Steve, who's responsible for the private side of Follett's Brook to be repaired, the town, or is it shared?
I would say that there wouldn't be necessarily a requirement for anyone to do anything. If that's private property up against the brook, they're not required to
Yeah, I don't think
maintain
that's,
the
Right.
brook.
Yeah.
But
it's in their own interest. It's their land. It's
It's
going,
yeah,
being dissolved down into the,
so slowly.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'll do a lot of checking off. on
Okay,
this.
great,
I'll look into a
great.
lot of stuff and get some information for the next
Vegetation
meeting.
was supposed to hold the stream bank together like that. Actually, they have trees there. I mean, they're probably, that's almost as good as you can hope for in that
Yeah,
situation.
I wouldn't wanna cut the trees down to.
No, you wouldn't want to.
No, those roots are holding whatever
But you
soil's
just,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's not, I don't know that there's any.
Okay, excellent. I think that is enough to get us to our next meeting. Unless there's additional comments.
Did you do?
I was gonna say, I can look, I will try to look in our records to see if I know we did survey work down there. Just see if we did topographic or have any of the design plans by any chance, just.
That'd be great.
Is there a way to, so you're saying just try to gather some of that information over the next month and not necessarily have any meetings with anyone over the next month, just try to,
Well, yeah,
okay.
there's two, the immediate goal is reach out
Yeah.
to
No, yeah.
DPW, take care of the safety issues. Secondary, let's try and get a view of the park and gather as much information as we can about its current state and its desired state based on historical documents. You know, whatever we have in our files, et cetera, and then use that to help propose a plan.
And the desired
Maybe she
state would be
gave-
fully the Conservation Commission's desired vision, as we're still tasked with management.
This one here?
Yeah. And then that vision could be adjusted based on other
Yeah.
stakeholders' inputs.
So hopefully at next meeting, we have some piece of paper we can roll out on that table and start saying,
Yeah.
sounds
this wall needs to be, we think this wall needs to be reconstructed, we think this area needs more riprap, we think blah, blah, blah.
Whoops, it disappeared.
We want
What
to
do
try
I
and do this.
Okay.
Try and-
Until I don't have one
Yeah,
of these.
yeah. Sound good?
Yeah, the only
Oh, I
reason
wrote
I
the
asked
wrong
that is because we don't maintain that dock that goes out.
9,
But we'll just assume they want to keep that in its
Sure.
current condition. That's all I'm trying to get at. I don't know
Who maintains
is.
that dock?
I mean, DPW must take it out, and put it back
Yeah.
in, but
The town does.
So it's
Town
like a-
does.
I guess-
It's a town dock.
town dock. It's also like a town ramp, but in between. It's kind of, we want to build a new sidewalk, that's us, so I don't know, that's all I'm trying to get, is like, I don't know if we want to invite, say, Rick or someone to our next meeting to look at that with us, it's just to, you know.
Not now.
Because we might say,
They're,
we
they're,
want.
they're a stakeholder who would be involved at the step after that. How's that? Let's get consensus amongst ourselves first. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good discussion because we've been talking about Shanda Park maintenance for years and years, and it seems as though we're finally moving forward a little bit. So that's good.
I will circulate anything I find as PDFs.
Excellent. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Dearborn Properties Survey. So this came up as a result of discussions we've had with the abutter and also with Steve Walker. So Steve Walker is the representative from the state who does the easement monitoring on that property. He had recommended that we have the boundaries of that property that abut neighboring properties of homeowners, have that surveyed so that we know very clearly where the boundaries are, and so that we can communicate that with our neighbors, the abutters.
Where is the Dearborn property located?
So the Dearborn property is on Grant Road. It was owned by Charles Dearborn until his death. And then his estate donated the property to the town. And the property has an existing easement with Fish and Game on the property. And so there's essentially a 50-foot strip of property that has frontage on Grant Road that is the access to the property. And there's a home that has a driveway that cuts through that 50-foot strip. And so we need to have the property surveyed to be able to grant right-of-way for that driveway, and also so that we can clearly know where the town bounds are.
How large a parcel is it?
It's on the order of 30 acres, give or take a little bit.
And it already had an existing conservation, or
Easement.
fish and game easement
Easement
on
on
it
it, okay.
prior to it getting
Donation.
transferred to the town. So it was already under an easement, it was never going to be developed.
For quite
That
some
sec-
time.
Is
yeah.
Fish and Game still involved with it, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah, they
They're
still have their
involved.
easement, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I walked the property this winter with Steve Walker from Fish and Game to kind of view.
Well, officially he's from like the
Sorry,
Office of
OEPD.
Planning and something.
Office of Economic Planning and Development. I
Yeah.
believe. But he works with Fish and Game to monitor their properties. I think Fish and Game might actually fall under OEPD or something like that. I'm not positive, but, yes, sorry.
No, it's okay.
A good idea if you're not, do you know where it is now? Does that help?
I can get an idea.
You know where his old house was there?
I think so.
Where they just built 2 brand-new houses?
I'll take
It's out behind there.
behind it.
Yeah, and over to Pendergast,
Yeah.
around behind, almost to Pendergast at the cul-de-sac.
Should have brought that.
I took bring one. Possible one.
I think we have one.
Well, if we have one, we can show Roseanne after the meeting. We don't need to do it right here. So I think the next step is we should have the portions of that property that abut residential property surveyed, which is not the entire property. And I don't think we need to have the entire property surveyed because a lot of it abuts other conservation properties. And so it's really a matter of having the parts that abut residential stuff surveyed and marked so that we know and so that our neighbors know where the boundary lines are.
Are there trees there where you can post?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, well, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
sure there's some.
yeah, good.
Yeah, and I think there's some stone walls, but I don't think
Mhm.
it's, I don't think it's continuous stone wall.
Yeah, that would also be
There's-
useful for mapping later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and there's, just so you know, there's on the left side of the 50-foot-ish strip, there's stone wall for the most of it.
yeah.
On the right side, there is none.
There's none.
Along all the lots on Grant Road, which are 4, I believe.
4 or
3 or
5.
4 or 5. There is no stone wall. And then at the back of one of the lots on Pendergast, there's mostly stone wall, and then out to Pendergast, there is no stone wall. So it's actually only a very small portion where it abuts residential lots. And behind the new lots, where Dearborn's house used to be, there's no stone wall, essentially.
Which I would like to have that surveyed as well. I think, to me, it would make sense to have that surveyed
Yeah.
as well.
And one other thing I just want to add quick about this.
Sure.
Is that Doucette Survey was involved with Alan Mitchell in kind of roughly marking the side of the 50-foot strip adjacent to the home with the driveway. And we were recently requested by that landowner to kind of extend our marking out to the back corner and around the corner a little bit. So that common line has been roughly marked, plus or minus a few feet, like three or so feet, simply so the landowner knew where it was. And she believed that there were some trees that were in danger of falling on her garage that she wanted to take out. Kind of wanted to make sure she wasn't gonna be out into the 50-foot strip, but didn't wanna have a full boundary survey done of her parcel. So we kind of roughly extended it, and she said she wouldn't get close to the stakes of what she was going to do. And I also gave her the contact information for Steve Walker. She had questions about easement.
Okay. Yes?
Are these all new houses you're talking about that have been built there, or are they existing homes?
Most of them are existing homes and
Okay.
existing properties, but there are 2 new homes where Charles Dearborn's home used to be. His
Okay.
home was taken down, and then 2 new homes were put
New
in there.
homes, okay.
Yeah.
But the driveway with where the 50-foot access point in, that's an additional house. That's not these 2 houses, right?
That's correct, but there's been a home there, that home was just renovated.
Oh, it was just renovated.
Yeah, it's
I didn't
not a
know
new
it was
home.
new
Yeah.
home, okay.
Yeah, it's not a new home.
Only because if there were new homes put in, usually for them to get approval from the planning board, they might have to have it surveyed. So if it was in a section that you wanted to have surveyed, you might be able to just pull the records
Right.
from that and get the
Use
points from
their
Doucette or
survey.
whoever, and use
Right.
the existing surveys.
Yeah.
So that's something to look into.
We have that survey. Yeah, it was an out-of-town company that did that one. Yeah,
Yeah, the previous one?
the subdivision for Charlie's property.
Yeah.
For Mr. Dearborn's, the new subdivision for the 2 new houses.
Oh, for the 2 new houses.
Yeah, because we commented, or I was asked for a comment on that, and, because and my only comment, I think I already talked about that, our only comment was the prime wetlands were not shown, but they were added to the plan.
Okay. So, it would seem to me it would make sense to reach out to a couple different surveying companies and say, hey, this is what we're interested in. Can you give us an estimate of what it would cost to have this done?
And if it's over,
Yeah, what was the amount?
so I guarantee you
I
we'll have to
think
at
it's-
least do 3. But-
Yep.
And I don't, if they come in at over
1,000.
10,000, it has to be a real
Comprehensive.
RFP type thing.
Okay. So fill me in on that later.
But I would assume it'll be less.
So how about this? Why don't I try to draft something that says what we want, and then I'll send that around to the commission. we'll get agreement on that, and then I'll send that out to some local surveying companies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
I will most likely recuse myself from the discussion in case you
Sure.
should happen to decide to.
Sure, that's fine.
Also, so there's no
I
thought of
think
conflict.
3 is the magic number.
I know most of the surveyors in the area too, and I don't want there to be a perceived conflict.
Yeah, I know a few of them too. My wife
Just-
worked for a surveying company 25 years ago or something, so I have some old connections.
They're not business.
The one she worked for is no longer in business.
They happen to have surveyed the property.
Okay, so I think that takes care of the Dearborn property survey, unless anyone else has anything else there. And then, Julia, you mentioned Ellen having a draft of the Piscassic River Loisel
Yeah, she's gonna
kiosk
aim for our
information
next
for
meeting.
next meeting. And our next meeting,
Can I offer one old business then?
yeah, go ahead.
So I had sent a email, so Blanding's turtle, that was
Oh,
hit
yeah.
on Ash Swamp Road. So really quickly, my wife picked up I don't think it's on public record, but so my wife picked up a Blanding's turtle that was struck on Ash Swamp Road, maybe a quarter of a mile, less than that, a couple hundred yards from the golf course towards Grant Road, and maybe even just 100 yards. So it was badly injured, and she took it to the Center for Wildlife in York, Maine. We contacted New Hampshire Fish and Game, as it is an endangered species. And so we took it up there. It ended up dying, but they got 14 eggs.
Oh,
It was a
wow.
female that was looking to bury. They got 14 eggs out of it there in an incubator.
Nice.
And so they are going to look to New Hampshire Fish and Game for resettling those Blanding's turtles, probably back in the same area, because they will want to nest in the same place that their mother did. Tried to get information on the age of it, but they weren't sure. I need to call back at a time that the,
Oh, wow.
the specialist is in to get an approximate age, but it was a full-grown adult, most likely quite old Blanding's
Oh.
turtle. But they tried. So I was gonna get something into the town newsletter. I didn't hear back from Steve. He was on vacation. I assume he was overwhelmed with emails, and I didn't get something in. But the time for them crossing the road should be kind of coming to a close for the season, I hope. And then, so maybe I'll wait a month and then try to get something in, because they have a fall movement typically when they hatch. We'll be recrossing the road back to, and I think we mentioned that, maybe that was before last meeting. Maybe it wasn't, actually.
You were going to ask about this.
Yeah, so I contacted Rick Lasky at DPW and asked for a new sign to be installed, and the next day, he had a new sign up, just about where the ballroom is
Now,
on Ash Swamp Road.
Do the Blanding's turtles stay with the eggs until they hatch, or they just lay the eggs and they leave?
They bury
Okay.
them and leave. yeah.
Okay,
Yep. I guess they do have a pretty high success rate incubating and
great.
hatching these eggs, so
Wow.
hopefully it
It
works
takes
out.
like 15 years or something? No, is it that long for them? It takes them a long time to actually get to the age where they start laying the eggs, right?
Reproductive cycle.
Yeah, I don't know what the
It's-
age is, but.
It's part of the issue with them is
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yes, that's right. Because that was on the next day, there was a special on like Maine, like Channel 8 or something like that, or whatever it is out of Portland, on turtles. It was actually someone from the Center for Wildlife there, and they were talking about Blanding's turtles, and I think you're correct there. It's quite, usually I think it's kind of proportional to their lifespan.
yeah, and they have a long lifespan, but it's
Yeah.
sort of critical to not lose those ones at that age, I think is why.
Yeah.
That thing could have been 60, 80 years old.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was like that big, which is very big.
Mhm.
The Blandings.
And I did see a spotted turtle in our yard the other day as well, which is a state threatened turtle, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lots of good turtle activity. So we'll report that to Natural Heritage as well. So therefore, next time someone goes to do a subdivision or work within a mile of it, it'll pop up on the heritage report.
So, because the developer has to go to the heritage report to see if their location there's any endangered species there.
Yeah, plants,
Heritage
animals,
report. 'Cause
natural
I'm a-
heritage. Yeah,
'cause
it's
I'm-
usually in most applications, you'll see especially if there's a wetland application. there's a natural
I think I
heritage.
remember seeing that in some applications, okay.
Yeah.
So, always important to report endangered or threatened species to natural heritage if you find any, so that
Okay.
they show up when someone is doing development. It helps the wildlife biologists when they do their wildlife studies.
Yeah.
Keys them into what to look for.
Well, thank you for attempting that rescue, and for rescuing, because of that,
Thank you,
13 or
Shannon.
14 eggs.
Yeah,
She
absolutely.
she drove up there and they said, we need the piece of the shell. And there was a piece missing. And she drove back and she parked on the side of the road and walked down the road because she couldn't remember exactly where she picked it up.
Oh.
She found the piece of shell, drove it back to York. I don't know if you've been to the Center for Wildlife, but it's right at Agamenicus. It's up Agamenicus Road. So she spent a few hours in the car. Turtles and turtle parts.
Good for her.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very dedicated.
All right, anything else under old or new business? Yes?
The Lozelle property, there's a beautiful kiosk there, and there's not one signed piece of paper or information on that.
Yep, it's arriving, so
process.
next.
Oh, good.
So, you probably heard me briefly mention that Ellen
Ellen's
was gonna.
gonna be- so that's what's being done.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
what's being done. So, hopefully she'll have a draft available by our next meeting.
Okay, only because our property abuts the conservation there for the Audubon, and I'm always out in the garden, and I see people trying to go dig, with the metal detectors and all that, this guy pulls up with this car and he's taking his bike out. So I walked over and I said, there's no bicycles, because those signs are pretty standard, no biking, no foraging, and so forth. And he said, well, I always take it out there. I said, well, you can't take it out, there's no bicycles allowed, read the signs. He goes, well, I'll just take it up the road where there's no signs at all, and I'll take it out there. So I said, this gotta be, so I drove up to Lozelle's and there's no signs here, so, but if she's getting a draft, how soon do you think she'll be putting,
Well, she's going to, probably present it to us at the next meeting.
okay, is there any way we can get one of those signs from anywhere? I mean,
You mean
there-
before the next meeting?
Yeah, and just post it up there, no bicycles, no fires, no loitering, no collecting, no golfing, no camping. And, I mean, those are pretty
Yeah.
standard for conservation. Because
Yeah,
there's,
we'd have to look at the management plan for that property and see
okay,
what's.
see what's
Yeah,
allowed.
I know, we'd have to look at the management plan to confirm what's allowed and what's not, and then we
Okay.
could post accordingly.
Okay.
The materials that were on, the kiosk got blown down, I think a year ago, maybe a little more.
The one there now is gorgeous with those wood pegs
Yeah,
and everything, that's
the-
beautiful.
And the materials that were on it basically got beat up in the process of it.
Okay.
Getting smashed in that, yeah, so that's,
All right.
that's why there's nothing there.
I know that there's no wheeled vehicles allowed on that property, no bicycles. I've never seen a bicycle route out there. We go out, my wife goes out there every morning now, and she's never seen a bike.
Because my husband was in the barn doing something, and he looked over and he saw two kids riding their bikes right down the trail he cuts on our side. It was too late to stop them, so, they're starting to get out there. And also, Fallett's Brook damage. For probably the last 10 years or so, there's a certain individual, his property is on Maston Drive, and he backs up to that.
Yes, that's being addressed.
Oh, good, good, because we saw two, foresters, cops, or what do you call them?
Fishing game,
I don't know if it was fishing game or,
forest, ranger.
but anyway, two of them were getting out of their car to walk down there, and they were checking on some complaints, because people said they couldn't even walk along Falls Brook, it was so dug up. But it's being addressed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Say two things quick.
Yeah.
Thank you to DPW for mowing Wigan Farm trails. And thank you, I believe, to Tom Loisel for mowing the path across, I think
The
he did
field?
across the field up to Scassi Loisel.
Yeah, and I think he mows around some of the fencing as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know he has in the past.
And I'm gonna
Good point.
I took some fabulous pictures the other morning of the fog on the trail with the grasses are quite tall now and
Yeah.
turning brown. Thought about maybe sending them to Steve Fournier, see if he just wants to throw it in the town newsletter and say, this guy's a place out. Conservation.
Yeah, you good?
And remember the people at the mill still offered to, if we want to do photographs of the conservation areas, they would display them down in the mill space as a way to promote conservation in the town, Conservation Commission properties. So if you're getting some good photos, that's good. We could use
Yeah.
those.
And I know it's gonna late. I have one more thing I wanted to bring up real quick here. Mike Hoffman also brought up the fact that someone had driven a Jeep down, or a truck, a vehicle, down at Heron Point past the sign. I guess you can get a vehicle down and onto a trail. And I forgot to mention this. He asked that we place a couple of boulders or bollards in front of that to block that access. So I think I'd be more than happy to contact DPW to see if they can assist in bringing a couple of boulders down there and blocking that access, if he didn't already contact them and ask them.
Yeah, I would say please do.
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
boulders are the way to go.
Yeah.
Because last I knew, we had a supply of them.
That's right. We've been informed that there are plenty of boulders. I will contact Rick.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
No, I'll entertain a motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
you'll entertain. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, one and all. Our
Thank
next
you.
meeting will
Keep this
be
before I-
August.
I'll shoot off a note to Ellen to let her know.
Excellent, thank you.